Hello everybody, my name is Koogela. I'm an architect and urban design by profession. Everyone please intimate me if I am not audible or if my screen is not visible. No, I am not yet shared my screen. I take this opportunity also to thank Marg Institute of Design and Architecture, Swarnabhumi, MIDAS, to give me this platform to convey the concepts and objectives as an introductory class for urban design. Yes, I'm a student of Parishita sir. He has been my landscape architect professor and advisor when I was doing my bachelor's. Missed you, sir, in master's time. I thought we will have a time together for taking landscape classes also. Apparently, Vigneshwar is my batchmate. With no further ado, I take this platform to continue with introductory to urban design. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
So I assure everybody that it is not going to be just theories and so a lot of write-ups. I just need your 100% vision and 70% of hearing. It's something which everybody knows. It's nothing new which I'm going to tell about or talk about here in this platform, but I would just be helping you all to understand how different aspects which is already in your knowledge would put together for urban design concepts. So urban design concepts and approach will be today's topic. The topics which I will be covering will be what is urban design and architecture, why do we need urban design elements, and there is also urban design elements by Kevin Lynch. I'll be also talking about urban design analysis. Urban design analysis, how it can be done, I'll be illustrating through different examples. I've taken two prominent examples, more towards an academic view, so that it will be helpful for all the students for their understanding, and some recommended reading list which would help you to expand your knowledge on the objectives as well as the theories of urban design and concepts. So what is urban design? Urban design is the design of towns and cities, streets and spaces. This is something which we already know. Urban design is there in our everyday life. It's just that we don't know. It's even you don't need to be an architect or a planner or a designer. You can be a normal civil person. You can be any other profession to understand or relate yourself to the definition of urban design. I repeat, urban design is the design of towns and cities, streets and spaces. It is a collaborative and multidisciplinary process of shaping physical settings for life, the art of making places. The urban design involves designing of buildings, group of buildings, spaces and landscape, and establishing frameworks and procedures that will deliver successful development by different people over the time. Why it is disciplinary? Because urban design consists of landscape architects, they consist of planners, urban planners, geographers, statistics, transport planners, road safety experts, social and general experts. That's why it's known as a multidisciplinary, because we deal with subjects which are not only specific to a place as an as an entity, but holistically we take care of the user experience as well. So urban design has a couple of definitions. Other definition goes by urban design is where did I leave? Yes, I was telling the other definition for urban design also goes with urban design concerns with the arrangement and appearance.
Not as a full screen, not as a.
Yeah, it's full screen, Vigneshwar.
But it's not that full screen.
Yeah,
the
now
slide is not. Now it's loading again.
Is it a
No, no, KOOGELA. Just a
second? I'll
blank.
just share it and I'll share it again. Is it visible?
Okay.
Is it visible now?
No? Ma'am? Vandana ma'am?
We can see the folder, sir, actually.
Actually, her desktop is
Okay.
shared.
Yeah, there it says desktop. We can see that thing.
Okay. Can you see there is a presentation open in front of you?
I think it's getting loaded, ma'am. It will take some time, I guess. Now, the screen is not being shared now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's open now. Yeah, we can see it, ma'am.
Visible? I left with the next definition for urban design. Urban design can also be defined as that it is concerned with the arrangement and appearance of a function in our suburbs, towns, and cities. It is both a process and an outcome of creating localities in which people live, engage with each other, engage with physical place around them. So as you see, the first image is a weekly market in Amsterdam. There's apparently a junction for a road where on every Saturdays they create a market space. This is one opportunity for everybody to socialize, create economy, create an identity of space. So the arrangement of buildings and the temporary structures are such that even people can, it's pretty interactive. You can just purchase stuff and you can hang around with your friends. Same is the one in the right. It's a public fountain based in London. It is one plaza which is water based and encourages the kids to come outdoors and play. And the one below is a cycle track in Copenhagen. Copenhagen, as we know, is one of the most livable cities in globe, and it is also known for one properly established city for cycle as a main transit mode, and making it more interactive and the highlight of the city was one of the best parts of the city, which again comes down to the bolded part of the definition of urban design: arrangement, appearance, and function, engagement with each other, creating localities, engage with physical and place around them. So the idea is to enhance the place. When you start reading more about it, there is a concept called placemaking, understanding and creating an experience out of what a place or a plot we have. So what is the relation or the difference or the connection between architecture and urban design? Architecture, in simpler words, is the art of practicing and designing, constructing buildings. We have a site, we construct the building, we follow the rules, we follow the laws, we follow the context, we do a site analysis. Wherein urban design, the design of functionality of spaces between the buildings and the structure. In architecture, let me tell you in a simpler language that architecture is a standalone entity when it comes. In urban design, along with the architecture element, you consider the whole context is also included in designing. While in architecture, you take the context as an influence. Sometimes it goes beyond for designing. In urban design, we go for framework, designing, even including the context. It's a whole package. The objectives of architecture is basically of 3 F's. One is function, which the idea is to provide shelter or whatever the main purpose is, predominantly though it is shelter. F for form, an art of appreciation for its aesthetics and beauty. And F for firmness, which talks about the stability for the structure. While urban design is the art of making places for people. Human interaction with environment involves spaces like squares, plazas, streets, and pedestrian precinct. While we talk about the scale, architecture is mostly concentrated to an individual entity or an individual building or an individual set of buildings or construction. While in case of urban design, we not only with the building, as I said before, along with the building, we go for streets, parks, transit stops, framework for the development. We kind of foresee and see the future development. We make a framework. We suggest for policies. In case of architecture, the treatment of spaces with most 2D and 3D, it's 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. Urban design is always starts with the 3-dimensional. Though our language is drawings, we represent it to 2-dimensional as well, but it's highly on 3-dimensional side. So this is the relationship between the architecture and urban design. To take it more further, let me explain with you an example. These are 4 different locations in Tamil Nadu, known for its identity, urban form, grain, which I'll be talking about in the coming slides. First one is Srirangam. Srirangam, Chidambaram Temple, Tiruvannamalai, and Madurai. These 4 are very important landmarks and destinations. What makes it a landmark? Maybe we think that it is how the temple itself is formed, or the architecture of the temple to be right. Apparently, it's not only that. When we see the history of evolution, there is always a landmark where all the other population of the society surrounds to, orients to. Taking the example of Srirangam, maybe this small square of the dark gray is the temple, while the lighter gray is the site of the temple. Why are these 2 lines shows the context, that is the urban form which is growing around the temple. So here the landmark is the temple. The architectural component is the gray part, the dark and the light gray. The light gray being the site and the dark gray being the obelisk, the building construction. When it comes to urban design, you just don't consider these, but you consider these parts also, which is the immediate precinct of the temple, the orientation, the climatology, the other site analysis part it is. So that's why, because of this urban form or because of the climatology and the site setting, the temple is oriented like this. Same goes with Chidambaram. Very different from Srirangam, but the concept of approach is apparently the same. Again, this is the main architectural part of the site. This is the site and this is the urban precinct. Tiruvannamalai, again, due to the climatology and the orientation and the microclimate, the temple is oriented here with the site and the footprints of the urban precinct. Same with Madurai Meenakshi temple. The concepts are same here apparently. What I'm trying to say is, I'm just trying to convey everybody the scale in which we are dealing here with urban design is pretty much vast when it comes to architecture. Architecture has a pretty dimensional figure when it comes to what is the site. In urban precinct, it varies. Definitely this area won't be same as this and this and this when compared to the scale. So the architectural part is the temples and the urban precinct is the whole, the sprawl, the development, which is apparently, in other words, the development around the temple. So this is how architecture and urban design have a dialogue with each other. Moving on, this is one of the other examples which I would like to highlight. It's in Martel in Rotterdam. It is a multi operational building. This is the actual site. You can see this acts as a landmark, and there is a transit point. There is another market going on. There are office buildings. This is the main road. So in case of this, we see the darker gray was the architectural entity, and then the site, and then the urban sprawl. In this case, the darker gray part will be this building, the Martel building, which is residential come commercial space. And this whole together is the lines, the urban present, and this is what it is inside the building. So this is just an example to show how architecture and urban design have a dialogue with each other. It's not necessary that all the buildings should be very interactive such. Like in the same manner, there are different ways to interact, which we will talk in the other slides. So the idea is, we talk about urban designing, we talk about architecture, about why do we need urban design when we are all having a proper landform. Because we need a freedom and choice in mobility. We need support to social interaction. We need great public spaces. We need healthy lifestyle opportunities. We need reduce of cost of living. We protect the environment, to reduce infrastructure expenses, to reduce traffic deaths, and to make sure the community uniqueness. Well, these are just points. Maybe we can just take an example which is on our right side. This is a place called Utrecht. It was a village back in outskirts of Amsterdam, a bit maybe 40 kilometers away from Amsterdam. It was a village, but when the urbanization, when there was a population demand, an explosion when Amsterdam was facing, people started moving outside of the city because they needed a choice of mobility. They needed a place of interaction, but then they molded this place such that with the urban setup, they kind of interact with the landscape. Here you can see people are having cafeterias outside. They use the water channels. They use bicycles on the footpath. The ones below, once upon a time, which was used for some docking purposes, are now restaurants. So the idea of urban design is to give a quality in space. It's not just said that there is no quality in space when you get. Of course, every space is known as an kinetic force with a given span of time. We need at the end of the day, the idea is to have a very peaceful life, to commute within place to place without any accidents, to have a sense of safety, not on the verge of putting extra and a lot of money, but it should be affordable to us. So that's why we need urban design. So in order to go through urban design, which is a multidisciplinary course, which cannot be done by a single entity, we, as I said before, we indulge with landscape planning, landscape architecture, we indulge with transport planning, we indulge with anthropology, but these all come together in a set of elements. These elements are known as elements of urban design. This basically talks about urban structure, urban grain, density and mix, height and massing, streetscape and landscape, facade and interface, details and the materials, public realm, topography and landscape and environment, social plus economic fabric, scale and urban forms. These are some concepts maybe you're not known by the word or may not known by such a combination, but this is something which is already there in your knowledge. I would like you to collate it in a wider scale and understand in a scale wider, in a city level, or in a neighborhood level or regional level. Talking in detail about elements of urban design. First, about urban structures. Urban structures are the overall framework of a region or a town or precinct. Precinct is nothing but a context of a place. The place, its surroundings, which shows the relationship between zones of built form, land form, nature environments, activities, and open spaces. It encompasses broader system, including transport and infrastructure networks. So the idea is the urban design, it says that more than just plugging concrete buildings or making a concrete jungle, they say that there always has to be a relationship or for the context. For example, seeing in this image, which is in the right side, you can see this is Mumbai. This is Mumbai seaside, and you can see the sea actually ends, and the landform is in a curved part, and thus is the building which faces it. It could have gone straight and it could have got a cut, but no. Eventually, addressing what the site conditions is, making it zones. Not it's not like a very large area having just offices or just residentials, but then some of them having residentials. The end, there is an office zone. This is an open space. It's a stadium. That is a college playground. So these accumulation together, these different entities, again, the region or the precinct, which having relationship with the zones. The zones here are these open spaces, these built structures, these streets, the roads, and this water body. When there is a relationship between everything, these all together is known as an urban structure. The second element of urban design is urban green. Urban green is actually the balance between open and built forms. You might have actually seen, like in some cities in our country itself, there will be either so much of open space or there will be so much of just buildings and just buildings. Then there is no sense of walking, or there is no sense of understanding or orienting yourself to that place. Orienting yourself to the place also talks about whether you are safe, whether you're understanding, whether the place is legible as in is it giving a direction, or is it just a dark space. It kind of gives, you know, some emotions in you. So getting back to urban green, the balance of open spaces to build farm and the nature and extent of subdividing an area into smaller parcels of blocks. For example, a fine urban grade might constitute a network or a small or detailed streetscape. It takes into consideration the hierarchy of street types and physical linkages in the movement of locations and mode of transport. This is a master plan map of the city of Chandigarh. Here, while designing the capital complex with the hills and the rivers binding towards this landform, it was designed in such a way that if this was the capital complex and that is a community space, then how should the streets be designed? So urban design through urban grain, it means that the design, though it is taken in a very large scale, the planning should be both micro and macro level simultaneously. That's why whenever we make a big here, whenever a capital complex is designed, there is a reason why it is set up, and that is a reason why it has got this kind of paths. There is a reason why they have kept these paths. There is a reason for having a grid pattern and having these greens connecting to each other. So these all linked together is known as an urban grain. Other part of urban design is the density plus mix, the intensity of development and the range of different uses. Well, this is an example of Manhattan in New York City. So this is a built use plan of Manhattan. It shows like There are multi-level family buildings. There are mixed commercial buildings. There are commercial buildings. There are industrial manufacturers. There's transportation unit. So like built and land use are two different things, which I would like to highlight. Built use is basically the usage of the building, and the land use is the allocation by the laws for what zone is the land allotted for, whether it's for residential purpose, whether it's for open parks, or it's for industrial purpose. So hence you generate a built use plan, and density, as the name suggests, is talks about how crowd or per kilometer square, how many buildings or structures we do have. The other element is the height and massing. As far as it concerns, unlike any other, as I said in the beginning, that urban design talks mostly about massing. Massing as in three-dimensional. Here, height plays a very important role. The scale of buildings in relation to the height of the floor area, how they relate to the surroundings and land for buildings and streets. It also incorporates the building envelope, site coverage, and solar orientation. Height and massing create the sense of openness or enclosure and affect the amenity of streets and spaces. This is one apt example of another photo, one of the streets in Manhattan again. You see how the buildings are very tall. Yeah, same thing if you go to suburbs, like if you go in any of our Indian villages, you can see the buildings are pretty small. It's wide apart. We have our front garden, we have back courtyard and everything. That is breathing spaces. So I don't say that that building very closely and very tall is bad, and building apart and very low in height is good. We go with always so many aspects together. So that's why it is important to understand that the elements of urban design are basically the dialogues of planning with the given site with the given site conditions, which is very important. The other element of urban design is the streetscape and landscape, very important part, given that we are facing, not only even if we are facing a climate or condition today, it is equally important because these are the lungs and the breathing bronchi for any development of area or any regional level. Streetscape and landscape is the design of public space such as street, open spaces and pathways, and including landscape, microclimate, shading and planting. Facade and interface. Facade is known as the face of a building. The skin of the building is known as the facade. And the interface is the movements and the interactions that happens between the two buildings' face skins. For example, let's say the first image is Barcelona, the city of Barcelona. It's a pretty planned city in that way. It has a grid, and the facade of the building are also pretty much regulated for its mixed use, and it talks to each other. So they're identical. The second one is the Statesman building in CP New Delhi. You can see that this building stands out when compared to this. This is an office building. This is also an office building. But you see the interaction here. They want to stand bold. They don't want to keep any kind of interaction there. They want to mark an identity in that area. So that's how it they achieved it, by giving that form, that facade. The third image is, of course, I think it would be very familiar with you guys. It was the release for the movie Kabali. Rajinikanth being one of the main icon in Tamil Nadu, we can see that when the movie was released, they kind of made these posters to hang it on the buildings. Why? Because these are an old theater. They don't have buildings need for banners because they never thought in both those days it would be required. But then today's demand is different. So people kind of entitled, they just customize them to, so this kind of talks, these building facade talks to the people, like there is a movie running, we support him, we celebrate his actions, like that. So however, the function, along with the function, what happens on the skin of the building is equally important. So facade and interface as an objective for urban design is the relation of buildings of the site, street and neighborhood buildings aligned to setbacks, boundary and treatment, the architectural expression for the facades, projections, openings, patterns and materials. Next is the detail plus material. As a subset to the previous objective, it is nothing but the close-up appearance of the objects and the surface and selection of materials in terms of detail, craftsmanship, texture, color, durability, sustainability, and treatment. It includes street furnitures, paving, lighting, and signages. It contributes to human comfort and safety and enjoyment of the public domain. Remember when I just said that urban design is also defined as an arrangement of spaces? It means it means not only the building but the spaces between the building and its surroundings. Well, this is one example. The first one is in building as a library of the University TU Delft. The building, the roof actually starts from the pedestrian path and it ends up to the highest point of the building, and it has kept so interactive, and the landscape extends to the roof of the building where it's pretty much accessible given the condition and the details. There are steps to climb, there are steps also can be used for sitting, and this open space can be used for as a multifunctional. Coming down to another one of the examples in Denmark, these are kiosks which sell daily things with having a furniture on its top. This can act and can be placed in public spaces, gives a good resting point where humans, like it talks about human comfort. You can, whenever you're going up and down, traveling on the cities, you can just take a rest. You can meet people, and these spaces can also be kept designed. It can be interactive. It can be, encourage people to come, attractive. That's the idea. The other thing is, apparently urban design is all about people and places. So of course, public realm does play an important role. The much of urban design is concerned with the design and management of publicly used spaces, also referred as public realm and public domain. This is there are different spaces. Public realm can be formal, can be informal, can be both, can be connecting to different crowds. It can also add as an infrastructure, So the first example is a museum. It's the Rijksmuseum in Netherlands, and it was just a museum until and unless they put an element here which kind of gave more attraction, gave more economy, more people started crowding, so more kiosks starts crowding and they get more seating space, and then there is a photo point. So see, that's how the scale is so big. Then bringing on people, making them use this place, because this is one wide open space with green. Same thing as the other example with our own India Gate. It is a national symbol, especially in case when there is a parade, especially the Republic Day parade. On a normal day, these gardens are being used by the civil people just to hang out, and there are kiosks, while on Republic Day is used for parade. So this is how public realm can be used, formal and informal. The other element of urban design is topography, landscape, and environment. The natural environment includes the topography and landform, water courses, flora and fauna. So whenever we, like in architecture, we say that you should always respect the context or environment when you're designing. The same philosophy goes with urban design. As I said before, we have to have a dialogue with the context. We can just we can do make maybe something a bizarre, but then it is always the best to find out what the context or the site wants it. First one is Venice. Venice is known as the city of canals. So you can see how people have accommodated themselves to use these places. Of course, it will be very less place for them to make gardens. So they kind of adapted this kind of landscape. And the second hotel is the Kandalama Hotel in Sri Lanka. Could you see like how well they have complemented the surrounding with the architecture. The other one is apart from public space, the space also has to be social and also should be a social and economic fabric. The non-physical aspects of urban form, which includes the social factors, the cultural, the traditions, the health, the well-being of people, community gatherings, that is also important. So first one is a celebration of Pongal in a temple in Tamil Nadu, while the second one is a couple dance in a square in China. However, when till now we were talking about the different types of structures and elements, how it includes the urban fabric. As much as that is important, scale also plays a vital role. The size and the bulk on the perception of the building and spaces. Bulkiness apparently refers to the massing, which is the height, weight, and the depth of the building, the relationship with the surrounding. The first one is a street in Paris. You can see how monotone the structures are, and that's how they talk to each other for the large Haussmann planning. Haussmann is one of the planners who planned the city of Paris, while next one is in Burj Khalifa. Out of the blue, there is a very tall building which is inappropriate with the scale. But then it adds. I'm not saying that these all are good examples or bad examples. I'm just using these examples to make you understand the concept of what I'm trying to speak here. Here the scale is different, and here the scale is very, very different. Urban form. Urban form is the arrangement of building and area. And this arrangement is done as a component, including how close the buildings are used and are together, what uses are located and where, and how much of the natural environment is built apart. So Amsterdam is known as a city, another city which is apparently known for canals. So this is how they got themselves adapted with the network links, with how they use the water, the green spaces, the buildings, the height, the massing. So these all together is known as an urban form. So summarizing the elements of urban design, it apparently is the details plus materials, facade and interface, street and landscape, height and massing, that is how crowded and how high the building is, density, how close the buildings are, how crowded are they, and urban green, urban structure. If you see, these all of them are actually an dialogue which is, or maybe it is influenced by the topography, landscape and environment, plus the social and economic fabric. While these urban structure, urban grain and urban density mix talks about the urban form, density and mix height talk about the scale, streetscape, landscape, facade and detailed materials talk about the public realm and appearance of the building. So these all together are the elements of urban design. It's a lot to take in, But then actually, if you just remember the photos or the examples, or just remember like your own house, where it is located, your society, your locality. Just do this whenever you're just walking down the road. You can just find out which is the urban structure, what are the urban grains here, how is the density, is the height so obvious, and how is the streetscape, what are the landscape available, is there just a tree, is there any furniture, street furnitures, is there signages. Just keep the eyes and ears open when you walk around, and you can evaluate yourself, like whether what are the urban elements in your locality. There are also elements of urban design known by a very famous urban planner, Kevin Lynch. Kevin Lynch is an American urban planner, and he was the student of Frank Lloyd Wright, very famous architect. He was known for his urban environments and his early proponent of mental mapping. Mental mapping is nothing but the imagery you have in your mind when you pass through a space or when you think about a place. So according to him, this mental mapping is in his book, like Image of the Cities, as the book name itself says. He talks about 5 elements which actually constitutes to mental mapping, and in turn are the actual elements of urban design. According to Kevin Lynch, first element is the path. Paths are nothing but the streets, rail lines, trails. It's very much understood. Every street, every paths, every railway lines, whichever is known for mobility are paths. Then are nodes. Nodes are basically the points where they are known as the meeting points. They will be in a strategic locations, more like a public square or junctions. Even in our Indian context, we can say panchayat places. Olden days, we used to have panchayat. So those are also a node. And the third one, according to Kevin Lynch, is landmark. Landmark is something which is an entity and matter, an obelisk, a strong identity for a place that gives a new face for that place, and everybody orients to it. Example, Taj Mahal, or you can say Eiffel Tower, World Trade Center, or you can say Taj Hotel, India Gate, Rashtrapati Bhavan. These all are landmarks. Even MGR Memorial is a landmark. So these are physical objects served as public reference points. So you might have always, whenever you are having a dialogue or whenever you're having a chat with your friend, you will be like, okay, meet me up near the clock, meet me up near the bridge. So those things are actually accounting to your mental map because it's stored in your mind, and that is because it's a landmark. Edge conditions are the clear transition zones, linear boundaries. It can be waterfronts, it can be road edges, it can be park edges, it can be a colony edge, or it can be a bridge which is dividing two zones. So those are known as edge. And the last one which he says are the districts. So districts are actually neighborhoods or small sections of a region or a building or a city which has a very different character. For example, this is a place of Denmark. And back in olden days, when Dutch people had visited, they made this area exactly as a replicate of Amsterdam, which is known as New Haven in Copenhagen. But it is not in Netherlands, but it is in Denmark. But it's not necessary that the character has to come from every other place. It can be different also. Like Singapore has a small Indian area. Maybe your different colonies also have a different characteristic. Maybe a colony known for only for defense people have a different character. That is a kind of a district. So the aim of urban design, summing up, I hope everybody understood after the elements of urban design. And now we talk about the aim of urban design is basically from all these objectives, from all these examples, we know that it is idea is to create a productive, sustainable and livable places for people through leadership and integration of design and excellence. So there is not a good urban design and bad urban design. Urban design is something which has to put everything in as a holistic process. It includes productive, it includes livability, it includes sustainability. It is very important. And these all together in a union, we could achieve an urban design. I know that it may be, there are more to it, but I believe in this stage it is very important that you understand that these three constitutes to urban design, because more or less you kind of see these also as an subsets to design a building in case of architecture as well. So how do you now do the analysis for urban design? What is this process of urban design? Now you know, like, what are the objectives, what are the elements, what is an urban design, why do we need the urban design? So how are we going to do it? So urban design can, the process, the study, or if you want to do a design, can be done in four main categories. Four main stages, sorry. First is the analysis. You analyze the part, then you synthesize it, then you evaluate it, then you implement it. So the idea is when you analyze it, it talks about the basic information. You have a site, you take out the basic info, the history, the bylaws, the survey, you do a site visit, you identify the hard and soft areas. Hard and soft areas are basically, hard is the concrete part of the place and soft areas are the landscape, that is streets, the furnitures, if there is any other topographical feature. And then functional analysis. What are the functions that is going on in the site? This part is known as analysis, the very first stage. After doing the analysis, now you synthesize the data which you have in your hand. So analysis not only requires data that is taken as a primary level, that is in not in primary data, which is received from on site, but secondary data also. You have to do desktop study, some research work, yeah, and then the synthesis part, which includes evolution of concepts and schematic design proposals. After that, we come to evaluation. After going through analysis, synthesizing it, then we evaluate the things. Which are the problems that need to be addressed? What are proposals can be given to mitigate that issue or couple of issues? Yeah, so evaluation is how well the solution fit the problem and how readily the proposal can be implemented. After these three processes, the final stage is the implementation. Implementation, as the word says, it's the strategy of actual financing and constructing and formulating, and detailed facing studies and tools that are considered to realize this project. So how are we going to do all these four into a study? Yeah, so for this, I will be demonstrating an academic work itself, so that it will be very easy for you all to relate your site, how we are going to do it. So when I'm jumping to the example, so I want everybody to just evaluate your site also in line with those, right? So urban design, this is the first example. This is an site which is located, which is known as Cochin, pretty much well known. It's located in Ernakulam. So it is always important that you understand the site setting. So here, Cochin is situated in a district in Ernakulam, yeah, in the Kerala. And then again, you zoom in, you show where exactly the site context is. And again, when you show the site context, then you exactly come back to your site, come down to your site, sorry. So this is how documentation should be done. First, you show what is the major scale there, pretty much relatable, yeah. And then you come back down to the state and district, then to the city, and then in the city where it's placed. it is necessary to show a bigger context because you want to know what is running around, whether it's water body, whether it's islands, whether it is delta or estuary, then you show the site. So this is the site which this study is performed for. So this is the first thing, you actually locate the site. And the second thing is, now you understand what are the governing bodies there. So the first one governing body will be here.
It's 2 o'clock.
Is the Ernakulam district boundary. And then it shows the where in district it is. Then it shows the municipal area. Then it shows the boundaries of the island development area. Then it shows the panchayat area. Yeah. And then it shows the municipal area. So all these boundaries are different. In our case, in our Indian context, all these bodies work individually. So we want to know how our site sits. So here is the site and this is how it's done. And you always have to have a pen and pencil in your hand whenever you're doing a site work, because you always want to know like how exactly is your site. Like you always have to keep a schematic idea of your site to know. It helps you in your design development. Once your site location is done, you understand what is planned for your site. So there is a city development plan and there is a master plan. You have to go through it and you have to see what is planned for the site. So this is the site here. Yeah, this one. And this is the site. This is actually the name of the site is Puduvaipin, which I missed to say before. Then it is always necessary to understand that how did the site evolve in past few years. So you show an evolution, how it actually happened and what the site is today. Then you talk about the ecology. You talk about the landform, the geology, the kind of soil, because it's very necessary, because if it kind of tells you whether you have to go for a very strong development or you have to go for a very soft development. Is there any vulnerable areas? Is there any coastal vulnerable areas? Is it tsunami prone? Is it earthquake prone? So for that, you need to understand the topography, the water system, the vulnerabilities, and the natural setup, even the flora and fauna. If you have to go to, you have to find out what kind of natural setup is there in the site. Other than that, you should understand the city structure, like with the districts, the panchayats, the road network, the development and non-development areas, the urban and non-urban areas, the population density. Then you should understand the water transportation. Since this site is located in the coastal areas, that's why the water transportation was required. Then you understand the development. How did actually development? As I said, it is always best to sketch up or doodle out your ideas. You find out what's the slum population. You find out what's the socio-economical status of that area. What kind of people stay there? Are there communities in that area? Are those communities very sensitive? Are those communities reserved? Are they do they have very strict way of staying? Then after this, you have to also go through while doing the planning, going through the master plan, you should see what vision does the municipal government or the state government have for the place. So you can't just go and take it as a clean slate and make. You have to actually make a development and do a study which is in line with the government itself, because they are also the stakeholders for this place. Let it be a development authority, island development authority. What they have a vision for this place, is that actually achieved through your design. Again, these are a more set of planning norms which would be useful. And this is the actual study of, now getting back to the site. So this is the actual site study. So you will make a different layers. You may have to work on different layers. First, talking about the morphology. Morphology is nothing but anything solid on the ground is mapped. Anything solid on the ground means anything that is constructed on the ground, which has a concrete base, which is constructed, is known as a morphology, and that is known as a figure ground. Then you should divide the whole place, showing the height hierarchy. How high are the buildings? You should keep a small legend. This actually shows, whether why the it shows a trend, why in that corner the heights are high, why in this corner the heights are low. You kind of understand what the reason is. The other one is built use. Basically, what all are the figure ground, what is the constructed there, what is the use, whether it's residential, commercial, institutional, that has to be done. Then you have to mark the open spaces, if there is any specular edge conditions where there is some port or where is some wetland, or if there is any fishing area, all the edges have to be marked. And if there is any trend, if there is any community, if you're finding which is very concentrated in some, these are known as the districts. So one of the districts are the Anglo-Indian districts, one is the Konkanese district here, one is the Christian district. The other one is housing typology. Typology is nothing but there will be one type of house which is kind of replicated everywhere, and there will be another type of house. So there will be a trend. One set of house will be like apartments, one side of trend will be like traditional houses, one set will be like Nalakettu type. So those all has to be identified, and it has to be marked and mapped. And you also, while doing the site study, you actually have to do an activity analysis to show where is the density more. Why do people come in the evening hours so much here? Maybe because they're going back from work. So those kind of trends you get to know. So these red dots are actually the density of people. You don't need to mark one dot for one people. Maybe you can take one dot for 10 people. So it kind of shows, like this shows that in the evening hour, this harbor area is very much crowded. Why? Because there's a fish market, and the fish market opens in the evening. That's why it's there. And it kind of gives you an idea in the future plan, is that does it calls for any traffic congestion? Do you need to work on the streetscape? Do you need to work on the transportation nodes? It kind of gives such ideas. So then there is functional zones. And that is, of course, every site visit has to accompany with image. Vision is very important, other than other layers of documenting. It is an evidence, after which you will do a SWOT analysis. You also jot down what are the strengths of your site, what are the weakness of your site, and what opportunities do you have for the site, and what are the threats to the site. Strengths and opportunities is something which is very positive. You can actually utilize it to get into design or highlight the identity of the place, while weakness and threats talks about something which you need to address them. In the site level, then you have to jot down the set of issues and what are the potentials. According to issues, you'll address them, and according to potentials, we have the set of proposals which we can make. Then you make an existing structure plan. Existing structure plan is nothing but your own understanding of the site put in different zones. This is one way of doing it. There is no specific definition for structure plan. It is just like, without seeing a map, if you want to know what a place is, it's a skeleton of understanding for a place. This is one structure map. One example. And after which, once you understand the whole analysis part, you come out with an aim. Now, what do you want to do with the site? What aim do you want to keep? This aim cannot come from one set. It should come from analysis. It should come from planning processes. It should come from the objectives and the land use and the master plan by the government. Then you make a conceptual concepts. Then with the design objectives, urban design objectives, you come up with one set of ideas. This is very much brainstorming. Then you come down to what all buildings do you need, what all hardscapes and softscapes you need. Then you propose a very basic schematic, like we make a bubble diagram for architectural works. We make a structural analysis, a bubble diagram for urban design in a very raw, this is very crude format. And then you kind of start building little by little. Yeah, you can actually, there are so much of residence place here, so you can actually induce something institutional there, or there is less green, let's keep that green. This reduces green, there is wetland, so we can't produce any buildings there. So such kinds and all comes in play. Then you go deep down, you start working on the building footprints, see what are the bylaws, and then you come down with a master plan, how you do it. And then you make again the set of layers for it. And that's how the design is done. You have to show sections. Sections are very important. You have to show it in 3D. You should show it in model. How you can do it. It should not be a very good laser cut, good model. It can be done in thermocol. And this is the other similar sorry, this talks about the analysis. This talks about meeting the stakeholders. I think you're also doing a group work. You have to draw sketches. You have to show photos that you're doing a scarce discussion with the people in the site. And then you make out your inference, your understanding. Then you come to an approach, and then you give your design. So that's all for talking about the urban design objectives and elements. These are some recommended lists, which I would highly recommend everybody to read. Even if you don't like reading, these books are very small, except for Death and Life of Great American Cities. Very novel based, anybody can read it. You can finish it within a day or two. Death and Life of Great American Cities is the Bible of urban design. It's because of this book, urban design came into play. The birth of urban design happened. It is always highly recommended you read these books. These are other books which also, there are always so many books. These are other books which also can impact your understanding on people and spaces and their relations, the dialogue with the nature and site with the building. And that's all for the urban design objectives. Thank you, everybody. It was very patiently everybody listened.